Hello, my name is Rob.
And I'm Rob.
Welcome to Impossible Mission, video game chittery chattery, and this week we are reviving one of our running mini series within Impossible Mission, Why Do We Love? In this case, it's Why Do We Love the Platformer?
Ooh, that's a good one.
To boil it down into its most core elements of why people love and why we in particular love platformers is, in my case, I came of game age, or whatever you want to word it as, with words in your mouth and that. I came of age properly gaming in the mid-90s, and in the mid-90s the platformer was the king of gaming. So that was my entrance into video games that helped me fall in love with video games. It was the guiding hand that got me into the industry, got me into the interest, really. So to say I don't like them, even though they went away for a while, and even though you could call them bad for a lot of occasions, I still love them.
Yeah, if you look at my first games that I had access to that I could identify as proper games that weren't bat and ball.
What is that bat and ball you keep on talking about?
Bat and ball is, you know, when you've got the dial controller and you've basically got a line on one side, a line on the other, and it's like a tennis court. They call it tennis on some things.
It's basically just Pong.
Basically, yeah.
Okay, because it's going to confusing me. You've mentioned it in a few episodes now, but I thought I'd call you out in it.
Well, at some point, I am going to challenge you to bat and ball, or tennis, whatever they call it. Me versus you.
No, right. But anyway, you were saying...
With dial controllers.
You were saying the games you started off with before I distracted you with, I don't know what you're talking about.
80s platformers were king. That was basically what you got. There were other types of game. You had text adventures and stuff like that. But we're talking like early days of gaming. So we're talking like games like Manic Miner, the actual original Donkey Kong, which is a platform game. Like it or not, it is a platform game.
What, the Mario one where he jumps up at the levels and he's got to jump over the barrels that Donkey Kong's throwing?
Yeah.
I mean, earlier memories for me, I remember... I mean, I was a few generations behind, so when the Master System was out, I didn't have a Master System. It wasn't until the PlayStation 1 that I caught up. So I played some games that were before my time in my early game years, so I've got very distinct memories of A New Zealand Story and Pitfall. I think Pitfall was pre.
Pitfall, yeah.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is, the game that we take our name from, Impossible Mission, was released in 1984.
Older than me, that is.
I was 9 years old and I love that game. So, you know, other games like Lord Runner and, what was it, Manic Miner. I don't know if anyone remembers Manic Miner.
The name is one of those things where it's kind of like an elder statesman of video games where you might not know the game, but you will know the name.
Yeah. Those were games that you grew up with. You played these games to death because you didn't have, we literally didn't have any other games. These were these new things, these modern things that nobody had seen before. And I know that it might sound bizarre to younger gamers now, that there was an age when video games were so new that people were fascinated by them, but and didn't really understand what was the entertainment value of playing video games. Why play video games? Why are you sitting there in front of the TV all the time?
Yeah, that's a stigma that I never really got over until, I'd say, the past 10 years?
Yeah. I mean, even the one of the granddaddies of the platform genre, Metroid, came out in 1986 after other platform games had come out, which is one of the reasons I have a bit of a... I prefer the term platform game to Metroidvania.
Well, Metroidvania is a bit more specific in what it is.
Yeah.
It kind of leads me on to another point I want to talk about, because essentially, Metroidvanias are RPGs.
Yeah.
Mini, very, very crude, basic, but the system is there. The RPG systems are there. It just doesn't have the leveling stuff.
Yeah.
But the reason I brought it up as a sort of a connecting to what I want to talk about next is the fact that you can't really say that you don't like platformers now, because even though they went away from between, I'd say, PlayStation 2, Xbox era, and I'd go as far as to say in the PlayStation 4, Xbox One era, actually. The reason they went away in sort of traditional sense is because the language of what a platformer is, has been taken on board by every single genre under the sun.
Yeah.
It's just there. I mean, what is a platformer? What is a platformer? You are a character running from, in the traditional 2D sense, of left to right of the screen. You jump. But I mean, that's the language, isn't it? I mean, because this is technical nerdy crap now. The reason why games run from left to right is because in English we read from left to right.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that there's some Japanese-only games. It's the opposite, because in Japanese you read from top right to bottom left, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point is, it's been consumed into so many games. I mean, look at Devil May Cry, that's a platformer, Assassin's Creed, Uncharted. You could go through a ton of games, and if it includes you sort of negotiating and getting through the level in that sort of exploring sense, it's a platformer.
Yeah. There was some variations on the theme. Bubble Bobble, for example, was a platform puzzle game, but it was kind of like in an enclosed area. That was an unusual take on the platform game. But then you had other platform games which were, they kind of preceded the whole Metroid craze by a couple of years in some cases. But I mean, do you remember Ghosts and Goblins?
Well, if you've not played it, it's the game where you are a knight and you run across the screen, and every time you were hit, you lose a bit of your armour until you're in your underwear, and it was notoriously difficult. It's one of the most difficult games I've ever played for one.
You had these variations on the theme of the platform game. Yeah, left to right, moving through different screens, solving different puzzles on each screen, fighting different enemies. So you had stuff like Treasure Island Dizzy and Chucky Egg.
Oh, Chucky Egg, I remember that, yeah.
Rolling Thunder. Do you remember Rolling Thunder?
No. I mean, Alex the Kid is a big one for me.
Yeah. Rainbow Islands, which I think Rainbow Islands was the sequel to Bubble Bobble.
I remember the early Raymans. I think Rayman is one of those weird franchises where it started off 2D. Became 3D, and if memory serves, the 3D ones weren't that bad.
Yeah, Metroid was kind of a tipping point as far from what I remember. When Metroid came out, everyone started looking at platform games a lot more seriously. And I remember that before Metroid, you had games like Chucky Egg and mascot-based games. You had Jet Set Willy and Manic Miner and stuff like that.
The funny thing is, though, I mean, if you look at what a mascot game is now, or like a cash-in game,
yeah,
they're awful.
Yeah.
Once upon a time, I'd say in the 90s, like DuckTales, Teenage Mutant Ninja... Well, not so much Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in this case, but still.
Yeah, but Mickey's Castle of Illusion and World of Illusion and...
Aladdin games, all this sort of stuff. Really good platformers.
Yeah.
Lion King, really good platformers.
Yeah. What you had after Metroid, bizarrely, you had this rush of developers and publishers releasing games like Turrican and Turrican 2. Strider came out in 1989. I love Strider. I think the original Strider games are amazing.
The new one was all right.
It was all right, but you had games like that where it was more aggressive. You had enemies that you could fight and stuff like that. And then you had 1989 and the release of a platform game that basically made me fall in love with platform games all over again. Prince of Persia.
Yeah. I mean, it was remade, wasn't it, in the mid-noughties?
Yeah, it was remade, but the original Prince of Persia...
The original Prince of Persia was of a similar mold to the stuff like Shinobi and the original Ninja Gaiden and stuff like that.
Kind of, yes, but I think the reason why the original Prince of Persia did so well, though, was because of the animation of the main character, the prince. Because the developer, the guy who actually made the original Prince of Persia game, had used a technique called rotoscoping, and it's kind of a precursor to that technique now where you wear like a skin tight suit with all the balls on it, motion capture. But basically, rotoscoping was this ridiculously smooth form of animation. It was so fluid, and it was unlike anything we'd seen in a platform game before. And they went on to do like Flashback, Another World, and games like that. And Flashback I think sold a lot. I think it was one of the launch titles on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the last hurrahs. I mean, two of the last platforms I can remember before it just went away, because basically, as perfect of a game as Mario 64 was, at that time anyway, it basically killed the 2D platformer.
Yeah.
But the last two I can genuinely remember is a little remembered game called Pandemonium and Klonoa.
Yes, Pandemonium and Klonoa.
After that, they all became 3D, and when they became 3D, it started to seep into other types of games, and when you look at sort of third-person action-adventure games, they are, in a manner of speaking, all very much a platformer. I mean, look at Horizon Zero Dawn. There's major platform elements in that. Assassin's Creed. Last of Us. Definitely Last of Us.
Yeah.
It just became so everywhere that it's impossible to ignore it, really. But at the same time, it's in this past generation, since 2013, these consoles came about, the 2D platform has returned.
Yeah, it has. Just a correction, it wasn't Flashback that was the launch title on PlayStation. It was Fade to Black, the sequel to Flashback.
Oh yeah, I remember Fade to Black. That name does sound familiar now. But it's been a weird thing now with the 2D platformer coming back, because you've got games like, Limbo.
Yeah.
Which are kind of, well, they are platformers, but they lean more into the puzzle element, don't they?
Yes.
The stuff like, what was it called? The Celeste and Super Meat Boy.
Yeah.
Which are like super hardcore Twitch responses, and which is kind of a new thing, I guess, as far as the platformer goes. And there's things that are just so in love with retro. I guess you could put Spelunky in that.
Yeah.
And Shovel Knight.
Yeah, you could. Again, though, you come back to this thing where the games are kind of, I hate to say it, but they're, because I love platform games, but they're all kind of variations on a theme. One of my favourite developers when I was growing up was the Bitmap Brothers. They made Speedball, Speedball 2, Zed, and various other games. But they did a few
that are mostly forgotten, let's be honest. They're important but overlooked.
Yeah, important but overlooked, especially now. But if you do get a chance to go back and play any of the Bitmap Brothers games, and if somebody has access to the Bitmap Brothers games and wants to re-release them as a collection for PC or as a humble bundle, even, do it. I will bite your hand off for that. But
yeah, I think that's a pretty good reason not to do something if somebody promises to bite your hand off. So okay.
I will give you money. In other words,
yes, that'd be a better trade of services.
I won't remove limbs.
Yeah,
they were really good at doing these massive platform levels where you only saw like a section of it, and this was I think this was kind of early 90s when they were doing games like Gods, which is still arguably one of the best platform action platform games ever made. But they were also doing other games like the Killing Game Show, which I remember the Killing Game Show. You were basically in this kind of Ed 209 type machine that could cling to walls and fire in different directions, all in a platformer. So it was kind of a cross between like Contra with a little bit of Strider.
Yeah, Contra's a platformer, isn't it, as well? Even though you are just shooting everything.
Yeah.
Platforming too.
Yeah. The thing that struck me while you were talking a little bit earlier was that games like Infamous and Assassin's Creed are basically platform games.
Oh yeah, 100%. Spider-Man, 100%.
Yeah.
You could just run through all of the games and all the modern successful games, and you'd have to go a very long way to find something which isn't in some way owing.
Yeah.
Like to a platformer. I mean, I guess if you're going to be facetious, Forza and Gran Turismo, no, I don't think they do really. But generally speaking, it's hard to find something.
Any game in which you can move up and down levels, I would class that as a platform game. And I know
So,
it's a massive generalization to say that, but
well, I'm not going to go as far as calling them platform games. I think it's easier to say they owe a lot
yeah, they do.
to platformers. So I'm going to close this episode out with a question. Favourite two platformers? I don't mean two as in number one or number two. I mean 2D and 3D.
Oh, wow.
I'll go first. So
now you're asking.
I'll give you a little time to think. A 3D one, it's boring and obvious, but it's boring and obvious because it's still probably one of the best. I mean, I've not played the newer iterations, like on the Switch or what have you, which I feel like I should. But anyway, I'm diverting. I'm stalling. It's a Mario 64.
Yeah.
I mean, it can't not really. It changed an industry overnight, that game, basically.
Yeah, it did. I mean, even if you go back now and play Super Mario 64, it still holds up. It's ridiculous just how well it holds up.
As for 2D, it's harder to say, really.
There's so many more options with 2D.
I mean, I have a massive soft spot for Earthworm Jim. There's just so many. I guess I don't have two to jump off with, so I think I'm going to have to come back to my 2D one and jump and force you to pick something.
Obviously, I've mentioned Prince of Persia and how much I like Prince of Persia in terms of 2D. But I think if I'm going to go with 2D and say which one is my favourite 2D platformer, just in terms of quite literally everything from the animation to the story, the backstory behind it, to the puzzles, how much of a challenge it was, I've got to say Flashback. Flashback, when it came out on the Amiga, it quite literally took everything that had been done from Metroid onto Prince of Persia and then said, right, okay, we're going to do all of this, but we're going to do it better.
Very bold, I guess.
Flashback came out in, 91 or 92 or something like that? I think it was 92 maybe. But it was, in terms of just, if you look at a screenshot of Flashback, and then you look at the date and you say, they did that in 1992?
Yeah, there's a few people in video games that are just, I don't know, soothsayers that can read the future or whatever.
Yeah, and the storyline, you're a secret agent who's trying to recover his lost memory. You know, it was cinematic. It was, it was telling a story. You had challenging enemies, and the weird thing is, in my head, I go on from Flashback to Oddworld, right? Because Oddworld, I love Oddworld as well, and Flashback and Oddworld have some weird parallels in terms of them both being sci-fi and them both having these, these weird puzzles to solve, and they're both being challenging and having some sly humor in there. You know, it's weird. But yeah, I'm trying to think of a 3D platformer.
I guess 2D is too hard because there's so many. Like what Shinobi is a favourite, the Shinobi franchise. Gunstar Heroes. There's tons. It's an impossible question to ask, like summarising a genre that's so massive as platformers and say pick a favourite. 2D especially. I mean, the new Rayman, I think, is an easy, obvious choice. Rayman Legends.
Yeah. If I was gonna go with if I was gonna go with any other platform game from the modern era, it would be is it Rayman Legends or Rayman Origins?
Well, Rayman Origins is the first one. The title kind of gives it away.
Rayman Legends was the second one, wasn't it? Yeah, which was just it was incredible.
And it included a lot of the best levels of Origins too.
Yeah, if I had to choose one, I would go with Rayman Legends as the best modern platformer. Without doubt, the best modern 2D platformer. I've got no qualms about it. I thought of a 3D platformer.
Shoot.
You're gonna love this. Jet Set Radio.
You're gonna have to explain why that's a platformer now, because I
totally is a platform game. The fact that you can move up and down levels, and you can basically grind along different handrails to move up and down levels as well.
I guess.
I mean, at one point in the game, I ended up on top of a tower block, grinding down this spiral drain pipe type thing.
Just to clarify, I don't think we're calling Tony Hawk's Pro Skater a platformer, are we?
We're not. We're not calling Tony Hawk's a platform game. Jet Set Radio, yes. Tony Hawk's, no.
We are blurring some lines today.
Yeah, the thing is, there is a difference between Jet Set Radio and Tony Hawk's. Tony Hawk's, you're basically doing it for the fun of skateboarding, whereas Jet Set Radio, you actually had a mission involved. And
yeah.
I think of the characters, there were a few. There was one on roller skates, one on rollerblades. I think one had a scooter.
Yeah, but I think calling that sort of dramatic bombshell of calling Jet Set Radio a platformer, I think we have to call it a day for this week on that note, before we anger the YouTube gods any further.
If Mirror's Edge is classed as a platform game, because it is, then Jet Set Radio is totally fine.
Okie doke. Comment below with your thoughts, and we'll see you next time.